Welcome to a semi-surprise drop of this week. We have our founders, Evan and Adeniyi, joining in the call to discuss the very exciting announcement that happened last week with our massive Series B raise. Please know that we're monitoring both our Discord as well as our Twitter Spaces to field any questions that pop in. I know that not everyone was able to submit questions throughout the week, so we are giving this opportunity live. Don't be afraid with hard-boiled questions as well. Evan and Adeniyi have thick skin, so come fast, come hard, and bring the fire. So let's begin. First series of questions that we have is really around the upcoming release. Actually, before we dive in, I also want to kind of give space for Evan and Adeniyi for you to introduce yourselves, your role, and any fun facts before we dive into the round of questions.
Yes, sure. I'm Evan. I'm the co-founder CEO, Mysten Lab. So being in the space for a number of years, super excited to finally get to do what I have always wanted to do. Fun fact, I used to be a very, very good engineer. Then one day I decided I'm going to stop programming because I was slowing down everyone else because I was, should be focused more on building things. And the fun fact was that I went cold turkey, which is something you rarely see in the space. I went cold turkey one day and I never wrote code ever since. So that was pretty dramatic.
Hey everyone. Unlike Evan, I wasn't a stellar programmer, but I was a software engineer for quite a while. I'm one of the co-founders of Mysten Labs. I'm actually the chief product officer of Mysten. I've been in the crypto space for quite a while. I started in 2011. I built a Bitcoin mining company, and I've been involved in like a few projects in the blockchain space. I got dragged into enterprise for a while, and then I had to detox by going into Facebook, working on and really, really happy to be building Mysten with Evan and the rest of our co-founders.
Well, to dive in, one of the popular questions we get is what are some of the things that the community can look forward to when Sui is ready for mainnet launch? But I'd like to know different aspects, Evan, Adeniyi, of what are your top 3 things that actually the community can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few things. So you hear a lot of people talk about scalability. I think we've talked about it for quite a while, like the fact that Sui enables you to build businesses on the network that doesn't have to worry too much about costs spiraling out of control in terms of gas fees. So you can actually build predictable user flows and actually have users expect to pay very flat gas fees for a long period of time. I think the more important thing is actually what the chain brings. We spent a lot of time thinking about the programming model and what it does allow developers to do, given the fact that it's object-centric, is if you're coming from a standard programming language like Rust or Java or any object-oriented type of programming language, you get some of the wonderful benefits of that language using Sui Move. And we think that's going to enable a new slew of Web 2 builders to build really interesting applications on Sui. The fact that you have a model that allows you to build even hierarchical structures of ownership, where I can have a car that has a bunch of wheels, it has an engine, it has different parts, you can compose assets dynamically and do that directly on chain, and also have the rich history of that composability represented and actually stored on full nodes. I mean, that's going to really usher in a new set of use cases that just weren't previously possible or were too expensive to do on previous pieces of infrastructure. One area I'm very keen to see is the dynamic element of social that could happen on chain. I think we touched on the fact that you could build your own version of a Twitter, you could build social elements, even like comment on NFTs, you can actually follow NFTs, you could build a lot of things that you just might not think of doing or you might use Web 2 technologies to do that wouldn't really translate to value for consumers. So we think enabling people to do more on chain with greater elements of composability is going to usher in a lot of new use cases. More importantly, it's going to allow builders to be way more creative than they've been. We feel they've been shackled for quite a long time. Evan, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk more generally, right? So as we head towards mainnet, what I'm excited about, well, obviously the vision of the product coming together. This is not just any normal product. This is a platform. This is a community. What I'm excited to see is just how the platform coming together, not just the blockchain itself, but all the different pieces, all the different actors in the space to make that experience for the developer, for the consumers, for business that's relying on the platform, for that to be real, right? It's wallets, everything just coming together. That's exciting. Having the community coming together, understand the vision, having the developer building, starting to these big company that's building on Sui, as well as the independent developers trying to realize the visions on Sui. That's exciting to me. Everything else Adeniyi say is true. Just want to talk a little bit more generally. Just sort of seeing the entire platform coming together is the most exciting part to me.
I think one thing I am excited about bringing to Sui, I think Jen, you and I talked about this the other day, is we are going to be issuing NFTs to a lot of our early supporters of the Sui protocol. And they're going to be new type of NFTs you probably haven't seen before. And stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the reaction and say, wait, this can be done on a blockchain. That will be the moment where we know we did something right. The experience we hope to bring to the consumers, to business, hopefully is much more seamless. Hopefully it's realizing our vision.
Perfect. Well, then that puts the pressure on us to actually deliver the set experience. But yes, there are some exciting projects on the more experiential side we're looking at, because we've heard a lot of feedback from people who joined AMAs in the past and have contributed to our community in various ways of something that can exist, that they have been here with us on this journey from the start. So we do acknowledge that that is part of the experience for our really enthusiastic and highly connected community to enjoy this. So definitely stay tuned. As far as new use cases or applications, I think we can kind of skip that because both of you have definitely dived into it. This is another question that I can relate to as a non-technical person, but it is about the future Sui. Can you explain it like I'm five, please?
The future Sui is, if you're looking far out, what we're trying to accomplish is this is just a fabric of the internet, right? So when people are thinking about, if I'm building an application, I'm creating assets in my application, in my products, I have a decision to make whether I'm going to store it in my private space, my own database, only my product can touch, or I'm going to put it on this open shared public ledger that's verifiable, where now the control of the assets is in the hand of the user. That's the future. It's just the fabric of the internet. It's another sort of tools for developer to enrich the experience for their users. So that's what we're about. That's ultimately what we want to see. What I'm excited to see is this convergence of all these different verticals, all the different things that we think of them as being distinct, but they're converging. Gaming nowadays have social elements in it, and that social elements and that community also means there's going to be commerce activities within that community. So the whole point of the Web3 blockchain is to make that easy, to break down the boundaries. So that's what we're excited to see. That will be the future Sui if very successful.
So I'm going to interject. Just so you know, this is actually a mass improvement, because last time I asked this question to Evan, I had to tell him, okay, so you've explained it as if I was a college student. Now you've explained it as if I am a high school student. So we're getting there.
Well, the key thing here is I think the future 5-year-old, the next generation of 5-year-olds will be experiencing this. You don't need to explain it to them, right? Just like these days, you don't have to explain what a smartphone is, what a cell phone is. Your entire digital life is stored in your phone. You don't have to explain it to them. They're just there. That's what we hope the space evolve into.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that infrastructure is supposed to be in the background and boring, and if anything, silent. It's meant to enhance the experience and enable people to do things that just won't be possible. So we see Sui as this massive shared piece of infrastructure for the future. Like when you go onto the website on the internet today and you try to visit a website, you're not thinking this website is hosted on Amazon or it's hosted on GCP or anything like that. You simply know you're experiencing a website, and that experience will have some element of ownership. I think the future would be you go to a website, you experience some sense of ownership, but that ownership of an asset that you purchase digitally is going to be stored in a different type of database, and it'll just be a public database that gives you a lot more freedom and ownership. And we think that experience should be dumbed down so much that consumers can use it and not have to think too much about what infrastructure it brings. And that just speaks to Sui and other chains wholeheartedly. And I think that's the ultimate vision when this platform becomes really useful. It's not the first thing on top of people's minds, right? You're not going to be thinking, I'm only going to buy an asset on Sui, I'm going to buy an asset on Ethereum. You're going to be thinking, I'm going to be owning an asset. And the experience of Web3 is going to be rich enough to make that a possibility. The difference is we've focused on day one to build Sui for the next billion people. I mean, we did a lot of work at Libra, focusing on building the Libra blockchain to enable banks to settle with one another. But Sui is the next level of that. It really enables peers to own their own assets and transact at high velocity and low cost. I think it's that building from first principles that really sets Sui apart from other chains. And we hope it's really going to usher in a new set of experiences that just weren't possible elsewhere.
Got it. You're going to have to forgive my wording. I'm going to try to say it gently, but we also believe in being transparent. So $300 million is a fuck ton of money. Can you break down how you see this being used?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend this $300 million in a very short amount of time. This obviously gives us a ton of runway to really build our suite, build out the vision, and potentially building out a lot of other products, right? So our job is not done when Sui is done. There's no such thing as done. And this model for crypto projects is the fundraising effort is very different. Basically, you have one major event where you build out the platform, and that's why it seems like it's very concentrated. So it's just a different way of doing fundraising, put it that way. So we're definitely going to have a lot of growth ahead of us, the company building out for many years, as well as utilizing this war chest as a strategic to acquire content. You're just looking for new opportunities to put the money to the best use. It's kind of hard to break down exactly what amount is going to go here and there, but working through it.
Got it. And what made you focus on Asia for your expansion efforts?
Well, obviously, there's an opportunity, right? As you see, we have signed up some pretty amazing partners. Netmarble is people in the Western world may not realize this. Maybe it's not a big name as some of the US-based gaming companies, but probably Netmarble is one of the largest mobile game developer in the world. We're talking about daily active user for some of the titles are in the millions. That's huge. So what that means is this is an example of an Asian company being very progressive and ready to jump into space. They are very open-minded and moving very fast. So, and Asia is a huge region. Everything we build is global. So it's a very natural focus for expansion. We would love to see Web3 development taking off in all parts of the world. Right now, we just had great partners in Asia. So that's where we start out, where we're focusing right now.
One thing we feel focusing on Asia is going to really accelerate adoption of Sui blockchain very, very quickly. We want to make this chain useful. The whole point of the chain is to drive value for consumers. And we think there's no better place to actually do that than look at the forward-thinking companies that are out there in Asia and even the communities being built there in Asia. That's not to say we're ignoring the US market or other markets. In fact, we have a big presence in the US. Most of us are US-based. And we do plan to take on other opportunities globally. Asia was a prime focus specifically because the appetite was there to try something new. They've tried other chains where they had particular issues, where they weren't able to be as expressive as they wanted to be in the applications they built. They felt at times that when you try and build an application, by the time you reach the infrastructure layer, namely the blockchain, you end up boiling down a use case furthermore to the point where it just becomes a trading card game. And Sui offers these new benefits that allows gamers to actually build new ownership experience. And we think that's what really caught the eyes of the builders we're working out in Asia. And I think that's only going to grow. And if anything, it translates to the US market, translates to the European market. It's going to translate globally. That's our goal right now.
Got it. And besides engineering, that efforts that you're ramping up to recruit, what are the other critical areas of Mysten that you're looking to build up?
I could touch on some of this. Beyond engineering, we want to build out a research function. I think we've already started that work. It's being led right now by George Denizes. I always say George is the most famous scientist in Greece. You should probably look him up. And we're building out a very high caliber research center. And I think this is something Evan did remarkably at Facebook, and we continue that effort here at Mysten. We're also investing in having people with strong backgrounds in economics and also understands the details around MEV and things of that nature, so it can allow us to enable our builders to build better applications to take advantage of some of these primitives on Sui. We have a lot of interest also in building out a solutions engineering team. We're doing that right now. And the reason for that, if you think about most cloud companies, they have an element of solution engineering to accelerate the build out for certain partners. And we want to be able to do that for partners in our space to help them understand how to build on our stack. But more importantly, build out some core examples that can really accelerate their own thinking. So yeah, building out our research function, building out our solution engineering team, also investing in some of the economic elements that are very, very unique to the blockchain space to a large extent.
Yeah, also a lot of efforts around community building side. We need to expand our team, partnership, a lot of outside external facing part of the company, continue to build them up.
I'm actually going to take a second to do a shameless plug that my team is also expanding. Marketing needs some more stuff. So we have have job descriptions on our career site. So we're looking for a content producer, a developer marketing manager, and a community manager. So if people are looking for non-technical roles, there are several that are up now. So stay tuned as we continue building out and advertising things that we need as resources in our team. And going in, I think I lost my place. So you're going to have to forgive me as I put in a shameless plug for the requirements of my team. We also wanted to go into kind of concerns around, we hear this FUD around a lot, especially as a large number like 300 million comes up. But, what are the steps that we at Mysten are taking to ensure that we're not just another VC chain on the market?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. It's a good concern, right? So, what are things that you worry about? Well, are these VCs, investors, the right partners for Sui, which is essentially a community-owned project? Because ultimately, Sui, like we said, is meant to be for builders and consumers, right? So, it's a public utility in some way. So, the key thing is not worry about VCs because you need investors to inject value into the network to fund the development. It's making sure it's the right set of partners that's aligned with the vision we set out for Sui. That's easy. So if you have the right partners and you're all aligned in where it's going and you demonstrate progress and growth, then you don't worry about the VCs because they are just there with you. They're just another member that they're not going to dump on the retail. I think that's the concern. Or they're not going to have overly strong influence over the direction, the development of the network to benefit themselves, but not everyone else. So step one is making sure it's the right sets of partners and they're on board for the right reason, not just for near-term commercial financial gains, but they're in it to build out this division that we lay out in front of them. So perhaps I'm jumping forward to a different kind of question. It's, the reason why I think what we learned through this fundraising process is, well, guess what, right? Because of the market condition, a lot of the FOMO VCs are gone. They're not investing because of FOMO. They're investing because they believe in the future that we're trying to build, so that we believe we have the right sets of partners. Beyond that, right, we are obviously taking pains to make sure that we'll gradually, increasingly decentralize the ownership of the Sui tokens, that we set up the right kind of tokenomics, the right incentive model to allow for that. So that's very important. Progressive decentralization. It's not just a technology concern, it's also the economics and also making sure we have alignments with all the actors in the ecosystem.
Every good ecosystem needs partners, and every good ecosystem needs builders, and it needs to be very augmented towards the community. And this is something is really, really dear to how we think at Mysten. I think a lot of the partners are also builders on Sui. They're going to be building content on Sui. They're going to be bringing liquidity to Sui. They're going to be participating in the ecosystem. So it's very, very important to bootstrap your ecosystem with a lot of players that are going to add a lot of value. So our goal is for Sui to be the most vibrant place to come in and build, and also to launch your projects. And to do that, we need partners who are very well aligned with the vision and long-term prospects of a network. It's actually a testament that we've raised such a large amount in a down market. Like, it's the worst time to raise if you're a business person. But I think we're very, very proud about what we've achieved. And more than anything, we think we're able to stand out from the noise, and we're really focused builders, and we're really excited to launch this network.
Yeah, the key things to recognize here is we're not short-term focused. We're not very promotional. If you see our presence in media, we're not, hey, here you can get free stuff, right? We're building for the future. We're building something we believe is going to benefit all the builders and then the consumers. So we want to be here 20, 30, 50 years from now on for Sui to be the fabric of the internet, something that people just use. So if you have long-term focus, you don't really worry about the near-term concerns, whether any investor is going to be trying to manipulate us or trying to control. We've taken pain to make sure that's not going to be the case. We have a lot of different investors in a space. It's not taken up by giant checks. It's very, very well distributed.
And if you're curious to know about tokenomics and decentralization, stay tuned, because at the end of the month, we do have, and I see him lurking as a listener, Alonso, our head economist, who will also be breaking this down. So stay tuned. In terms of additional questions, we know that Mysten Labs, over the course of this year alone, has grown tremendously as a team. What are the challenges that you are facing to go from a small startup to potentially the beginnings of what is a scale up?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? This is the kind of experience, it's unique. I built very large teams in big companies, but there is simple, right? You already have a stable environment. You just bring a bunch of people together, you recruit people to work on something. Here, not only are we building a company from the ground up, we're building a product that's designed from the ground up with technology that has never been tried before. And we're building an ecosystem, platform, everything, foundation, everything from the ground up. And as soon as we go to mainnet, it's basically like a public company because now all eyes on you. This is something everybody rely upon. So it's really, really unique experience, and we're learning as we go. So we have a great foundation in place, a team of exceptional professionals, all passionate about what we're building, all believing in our mission. So that gives us a very, very strong foundation. So as we move forward, as we grow, we learn, and we sometimes make mistakes and we'll correct them very quickly. Yeah, these are the challenges. We just kind of multiply by a few X because we're moving at tremendous speed and doing all the things we're doing all at the same time. It's quite exciting, but we were really ready for the challenge.
Yeah, one thing to add is I think we focus heavily on really experienced winners in the space. Our team speaks to that. You look at the Rolodeck of people in our team, they're all very experienced, all high achievers. And that's really allowed us to achieve a lot in a very short space of time. I think we started building this company in November last year, and we launched DevNet in very short space of time. We're very close to testnet. We already started to build out a wonderful community, and it's a lot to do, but I really, really am proud of the team we've been able to amass and the people that have put their trust in us and leaving very well-paying jobs in traditional big tech and have made a bet on this very small company here in the Bay Area. And we are really excited about that. More importantly, we're very excited about the community aspect. We want to see how we can get the community a lot more involved in what we do and champion Sui a lot more and find out ways that we can interact with each other a lot more on a regular basis.
We just discussed some learnings that came from growing so quickly over time. Are there some key things going from a small startup to a much larger one at the stage we're in that you could at least share to the audience who may be also founders of their own and are looking to explore how to build out a team?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is to have the trust in each other because as you scale a company, you're going to have to trust your colleagues more and more because any individuals, regardless of their roles and function in the team, will not be able to know about everything. So if you're constantly trying to stay on top of everything, learns about every details that's happening in the company, you very quickly overwhelm and not be able to function. So having that trust is a key thing to allow you to grow the team because now you can leverage, you can delegate, you support each other well, and then you can grow. The other one is grow with a purpose, not just reacting to what's happening. It's like, oh my God, we need to hire these people because this is happening. Actually laid out a plan, actually know exactly why you're growing, in what function, what you're trying to achieve ahead of time is very, very crucial. Then be flexible, be open to feedback, and adjust along the way. So these are a couple of things that top of my mind as we grow.
Any tidbits
Adeniyi?
that you could share, Adeniyi?
I think you covered that perfectly, actually. I don't think there's much to add.
Cool. We're actually going to now go a bit more. I do want to give time for the audience, both on Discord and Twitter Spaces, to submit some questions. It could be softball, it could be hardball questions. We're still monitoring our chats because we do have a bit of time to put these in. But I also want to dive into the actual fundraising experience because you did this during a bit of a challenging time. So, what was it like to raise during this bear market? And are there learnings that other founders can take as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning is be prepared for everything. So I still remember having some conversation, casual conversation with investors, a lot of excitement. And then, okay, let's talk next week. And boom, that was the week where Terra Luna fiasco happened. And then just one after another. Celsius and Three Arrows all happened at the same time. And a lot of things change. So I think the key learning is one, be true to yourself and have a clarity about what is it you're presenting to the investors. What I mean by that is not basically do pattern matching and follow what everybody else have done, right? You need to stand out. You need to have a clear message, a story you're trying to tell. And then in a bear market, only the true believers, the investor with high conviction, are going to participate. The tourist investors are gone, so they're not just going to jump in because someone else is jumping in. So that clarity of the vision is absolutely the most important part of fundraising in a market like this.
Yeah, I mean, Evan bore the brunt of most of that work. He did a remarkable job through the process, and I think that the team really came together to make it happen. I say jokingly it's a bad time to raise, but in reality, it's probably the best time to raise, in a sense that it really allowed us to hone in and stick to our message, and it really resonated. We weren't trying to be like another chain, or we weren't trying to just replicate what we had done at Libra or DM. We simply planned to come out with something new that really solved the problem at scale for billions of people. And that's what really resonated with the best investors, especially those who were very well understanding that the current tradition of just pump and dumps wasn't going to last forever. And we needed to bring in more users. I think the next bull cycle in crypto definitely needs millions and millions of active users. I mean, we're not talking about just people that are going to do DeFi and trade amongst themselves. We need to bring in, mass consumers that can actually do things of value and actually have a sense of stickiness that can drive value for the long term. That's always been our focus from day one, and that's what we pitched to investors. And that resonated really, really well. And I think that in a market where there'd been a lot of noise, it actually made it easier to stand out, given that our message is very, very different from what the masses have been discussing.
Got it. And was it easy to go through this with 5 founders? After all, more people, more problems.
We don't see it this way. I mean, first of all, the 5 of us worked together before. We all had experience in what's it like to work together, and we all trust each other. In fact, I think the experience has been remarkable. We complement each other really, really well. Just look at our technical founders. Sam is the expert, the designer of Move, know everything about programming language, know a lot about verifications and all that. George is world's foremost, expert in distributed system, and Kasa is a crazy mathematician, a cryptographer. Right? The skills-wise, they complement each other very, very well. And without them working together, we could not have designed Sui. And then, Adeniyi and I bring different skills to the team. Adeniyi has product sense and knows a lot about finance and everything else. And I'm just here, right, doing my CEO thing, providing leadership and visions and all that, right? So we complement each other very well, and we know what's like to have voice our disagreements and our different opinions, and we move very fast because of the trust, and we will make decisions very quickly, don't get bogged down. We hold each other at a higher standard, right? We hold each other accountable, and we also know if we have disagreement, we can resolve them very quickly and commit to a vision. So it's actually quite the opposite.
I think the key thing is committed to a vision that you mentioned, Evan, because I think that's an element that's it's always been top of mind for us as a team. We started off building this company with a clearer set of objectives, and we made some changes to that over time, but these are changes we all agreed to and we felt was best for the company. But more importantly, we are all aligned with what we're trying to achieve with Sui, with Mysten Labs, a company, and we all really care about actually making material impact in this space. Like we're not in this to do a WEN token, as most people would say. We actually want to build something that's going to be here for the test of time. Our goal is for Sui to be a sidecar to the internet for ownership. If you're thinking of storing an asset, if you want to build experiences with ownership, you want to take digital assets and do any form of digital commerce in the future, we want Sui to be top of mind for builders, and we want to build Sui, the ecosystem, to support that.
Yeah, another key thing here is that all 5 of us have strong opinions, but we believe in strong opinions are lightly weakly held. So, so we don't get stuck. So that has made a world of difference.
To give context also, I think what's quite unique amongst the 5 founders is also, yes, I've also seen during the last several months how grueling of a marathon this is. Just so that people are aware, Series B is often called the round that breaks founders because it is a marathon, but you're sprinting the entire time because obviously you want to raise and create a runway so that your business stays viable. But people need to understand that the team has gone through this process and has come out and survived. And that is a huge accomplishment. It's a big milestone. I think on top of that is also the fact that internally, people probably aren't privy to it, but there are moments where you will see people who feel very emboldened to tell the lovely founders no, me being one of them. So I think conversations internally, the culture at Mysten is people feel very strongly about their opinions. It is informed by multiple data points, but people will pivot and there is some flexibility because we're not necessarily stubborn. I think people understand that it is a bunch of experts. They're bringing a lot to the table. And no matter what role you're in, I've definitely seen very junior people also come to the table and proclaim that we're wrong and we'd have to revisit where we went wrong. So I think that's a unique aspect of Mysten Labs. I don't know, Evan, Adeniyi, if you necessarily appreciate it when people like myself have to like poke the bear and tell you no, but just expect that to continue.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Like, I actually would accustom some of that learnings what we did at Facebook too, right? Because what I saw at times, not always, but at times is like, irrespective of your rank, it's all about the value you bring to the table, right? If you have a good idea and you can prove it with data and you can convince other people, you should move forward, right? It's not, I'm CEO, I'm CPO, whatever. That's not the way it works here. It's really all about bringing the right set of ideas because your goal should be what's best for the company, what's best for the team. I think that resonates really, really well for us as a small team.
Got it. And I think those were, for the most part, the questions that we had. I'm still rummaging through, but I did want to kind of leave some space for a lovely, healthy dialogue between our founders. Are there other things that have, actually, no, one has come through last minute. What is the most frustrating thing about raising?
The most frustrating thing is probably just how tedious it is in terms of the process, not pointing anybody out or giving a concrete example, right? We had a very diverse set of investors, including several from different countries. Not all of them are professional investors. We have quite a few are just big company. They believe in us and they want to work with us. But the process for each one of these investors is very different. So it's a very, very process heavy kind of journey. And that probably was the one that's the most frustrating part of the fundraising.
An element of it is just the time it takes. Probably a bit to do with the market. I mean, in a bull market, maybe this would have been done over a weekend or way faster. But it took a lot of time. I mean, it took a lot of Evan's time, a lot of traveling, a lot of phone calls. I think more than anything, we're happy it's done now. We can focus on building. We shielded the team as much as possible from the process because we've got product to launch. We have testnet to ship. So the amount of time it takes is an element you try and budget for, but it's very unpredictable.
So those were the main questions. I actually have not seen any further come through. I have to say our audience has been very civilized. They haven't thrown any hardballs at you. So, as a gauntlet and final challenge while we have 5 minutes left, can you ask each other very tough questions? Just one, please.
Well, you go first, Adeniyi.
What would I say? I'm trying to think of a hard question to ask you. Maybe I should even ask a personal one. Question I have is, why are you so snobbish about food? That's the question I have.
Well, so you know me, right? I'm kind of a workaholic who doesn't really care about a lot of things. I don't really spend money on anything. Food is one such thing that's sort of in my family's tradition, and we care a lot about it. That's just how it is. We're a bit picky about food, and so over the years I've experienced a lot about different cuisines. So certain cuisines I'm very picky as a result. Yeah.
If you ever go to a restaurant with Evan, just let him order for you. Don't even waste your time. Just let him order. It normally makes the right choice anyway. So.
Well, I'll throw a question back at you, Adeniyi. So I'll say, if you're not building Sui, you're building Mysten, what would you be doing?
I'll do a political one of I'll be building on Sui. but let's assume it didn't exist. Look, I got involved in Bitcoin in 2010, and the reason why I got involved in Bitcoin was after reading the white paper, looking through the code, I actually fell in love with the idea of a public bulletin board that everybody can use. That it's very that idea, you could say was the allure to me into the space. I became a Bitcoin maximalist for quite a while. I think I've toned down significantly since then. But I love the idea of decentralized open systems and the value that it does bring. I think I would still be doing something in a decentralized ledger space. To what degree, I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is most of my mind right now is focused on Sui and Mysten, that I'd have to literally conjure something up that would deviate my attention from what we're currently focused on to even come up with a reasonable answer. But it would have to be something in the same space. And it would have to be infrastructure for sure. I think the infra layer is the layer that I'm always getting drawn to, less the application above. I love building things for builders. I love empowering people to build consumer-rich applications that actually brings an actual benefit. So, and more importantly, I love working on really deep technology. It doesn't get as deep as what we're doing right now. I think some of the stuff Costas brings up, or even George brings up at times, is moon math, and I find it hard to follow, but I find those really challenging. So, I'll be doing something in the crypto space. It would definitely have to be something deep tech for sure.
We actually had a straggler question come through. What's the clearest signal that you're being led on? during the fundraising round?
Oh, good question. So, yeah, there's a couple instances where the investor was just clearly asking questions for whatever the reason, but not really interested in the company. Being led on, I would say the signal will be leading questions, I guess, right? So if the questions from the investors are leading, right, they're trying to get us to maybe slip up and say something. It's the kind of questions shouldn't have any relevance in the context of fundraising. That would be a signal. Maybe the investor is not really in it for the right reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of these investors that you talk to might have already made their decision before you had a conversation. But then after a while, you see the eyes shift and they feel like, oh, wow, this is actually very, very different from what we've heard. And even then, it's not like they make a decision to invest. But I think it goes with life, right? Like, if you want to learn, you have to be open-minded. And you don't always have to go with preconceived ideas. Be ready to be convinced otherwise. And we want to work with partners or investors who really believe in a vision that is beyond the status quo, like beyond what's been done for the last 5 years. There needs to be something that shifts to bring in the next set of users. And I think that's what really works for us. We focus on those kind of investors I understood, and the ones who had, the previous ideologies of how things should happen. I mean, they didn't invest, and I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, if they ask a bunch of questions, pattern matching, then they probably didn't come in well prepared. I think we've been very, very public about our stance on smart contract. For example, we've been very, very public and open about why we think EVM is not a good technology we're going to bank on. And then if the investor come in, the first question is like, why aren't you EVM compatible? That means they didn't do the homework ahead of time. They're probably not that interested in you, just want to learn. So, that happens. It's fine. You try your best to share your visions and tell them the reason why we do things a certain way, and you move on.
Any last parting words before we close out this AMA with our lovely founders who have graciously given time when I sprung it last minute on them?
I would say thank you for everyone that's been part of a community that's building on Sui. Keep doing it and let us know how we can support you. My DMs are definitely open and I respond to as many as possible. I wish I could respond to 100% of them. There's just a lot, but I do check my DMs on a regular basis and I would love to communicate and work with you. Keep building an ecosystem, keep participating on Discord, keep telling us what we're doing wrong. We'd like to change, we'd like to improve, and this is all good feedback.
Yeah, I'll say this, right? I think there's a bit too much maximalism in the space, or people believing what is currently in front of them is what it's going to look like. The landscape is going to be like this 10 years from now. There's just one reminder, technology always move forward. Things always change, a lot of time dramatically. Just think about what was like to use a mobile phone 5, 10 years before this, right? Things do change dramatically. So keep an open mind. We have a very different point of view. I hope you follow along and we love your feedback. So yeah, don't assume, but we always want to do the best we can. But if you see something that's different and you don't understand, let us know. We're happy to speak with you and share our thoughts with you.
Actually, as a final parting, where do you see Sui in 5 years?
Yeah, like I say, right, I hope if we're successful, that everybody, not just DGGens, are benefiting from Sui or from other blockchains. This is just something that just you're familiar with. It just happens. You don't think about it. Oh, now I'm using a Web3 applications, or I have to use this wallet to play that game, or I have to do something unnatural and friendly or high friction, being able to be benefiting from crypto. I hope if in 5 years is, hey, I'm using this app, I'm benefiting from it, and I now have ownership of something in this product, or I can play a game and the result of me finishing the game is not just on badges. I actually own something that I spend money or hard work in creating. I want that to be seamless. I hope if we're successful, that just happens and people are benefiting from it and without thinking about the underlying technology. Hopefully in 5 years, we won't be debating whether we should be modular, monolithic, or should be using roll up, or should we use this layer 1 or that layer 2. It's like, hey, this is great. I'm benefiting from it. And then we're successful.
Yeah, I agree to that. I don't think there's much I would add to that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evan, Adeniyi, for providing your time to answer some of the questions that people have had since the raise. To echo, we know that we have a lot of successes, but at the same time, we have a lot of learnings and ways to improve. We've received some feedback, so please stay tuned as we roll out some ways to communicate and address some of the recent questions or concerns that our community has flagged to us. And stay tuned for the next AMAs. Please know also that next week, our lovely engineering team is going to be offsite to regroup and figure out 2023 plans, as well as testnet. So the AMAs next week are canceled, but we will re-continue at the end of the month. And yeah, keep the questions coming. And as Evan and Adeniyi have said, we are always monitoring and looking for ways to improve our communications. So thank you so much for tuning in, and have a good morning, good night, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, everyone.